Today we uncover the shocking truth about UK supermarket meat. Right now, sitting in your local Tesco, Asda or Sainsbury's, there are products with farm names on the packaging, quaint British countryside imagery, a tractor logo, the Union Jack, maybe even a farmer in a flat cap. One real farmer in Devon discovered Tesco had stolen his farm's actual name and been using it since 2016 to sell factory-processed chicken that had nothing to do with his operation. Meanwhile, there are beef burgers on those same shelves containing less than 30% actual beef. And that's just scratching the surface. We're talking about chicken suppliers caught on hidden cameras picking poultry off factory floors and putting it straight back on the production line. Floor chicken heading to your plate. Bacon that's produced in 2 hours when traditional methods take weeks, pumped so full of water that your pan fills with white liquid every time you cook it. Frozen chicken injected with so much water that industry workers have testified the weight literally doubles after the injection process. You're paying chicken prices for frozen tap water. This isn't a one-off food safety issue. This is systematic, deliberate deception designed to extract maximum profit while you're left thinking you're supporting British farmers and buying quality meat. You're not. You're funding a system that's destroying British farming while selling you imports at premium prices. So we've gone through the major supermarket meat products currently sold across the UK, combining investigations, industry testimony, and analysis of over 1,700 consumer complaints. We're going to expose the 9 supermarket meat products you need to avoid at all costs, explain exactly why the system is designed this way, and then show you the alternatives that actually deliver what they promise. But here's the thing. If this information shocks you, if it makes you angry, I need you to do something about it. Hit that hype button right now. Not just the like button, the hype button specifically, because when you do that, YouTube's algorithm sees this as content that matters to people, and it pushes this video to more viewers who need to see it. Every hype click is a signal that this information needs to spread. And right now, supermarkets are hoping you'll just forget about all of this and keep shopping the same way. Prove them wrong. Hype this video, share it with your family and friends. Make some noise. Because the only language these corporations understand is when their profits get threatened, and that starts with people knowing the truth. Now let's get into it. Number 9. Tesco 20% fat beef mince. Now, it says 100% beef on the label, and that's technically accurate, but here's what they're not telling you. When you cook this, watch what happens. The pan fills with grease, you lose half the weight to fat that renders out. What you're left with is a fraction of what you started with, swimming in its own excess. Now, they may try and tell you that fat is a healthy part of the meat, and that's technically true, but that's only if real cuts of meat are used to make the mince. What they put through the grinders will have you never eating it again. A farmer who raises cattle for meat explained it simply. You're buying fat from the worst pieces of meat that can never be sold on shelves, and the label doesn't lie, it just doesn't tell you the whole truth. The cheapest mince isn't the best value. It's the most questionable fatty mince sold as beef. And here's the other thing about this mince that nobody mentions. It often comes with something called modified atmosphere packaging. That's where they flush the pack with a mixture of gases, high oxygen and carbon dioxide, to keep the meat looking bright red. That vivid fresh color you're seeing isn't freshness, it's added gas, because if they didn't do that, the color would be the most lifeless grey meat you've ever laid your eyes on. Number 8. Frozen chicken from Iceland and even Aldi and Asda. The label will say 100% British chicken in large font, then in tiny print below, it'll say with added ingredients. The texture ends up slimy or rubbery. People keep asking why chicken doesn't taste like it used to. This is why. And the maths is brutal. Buy 1 kilo of chicken for £10, 400 grams is water. You paid £10 per kilo, but the actual chicken is 600 grams, which means the real cost is nearly £17 per kilo. Dutch and Belgian chicken producers dominate this market. 20,000 birds per shed, 37 days from hatching to processing versus 84 days for naturally raised birds. Pump them with water, freeze them, ship them here, sell them as British chicken because they were packaged in the UK. The Union Jack on the front means nothing. What makes this particularly insidious is how the labeling is designed to mislead. That large print saying 100% British chicken isn't technically lying. The chicken itself is British. What they're not highlighting is that it's been pumped full of non-British water, phosphates, and brine solution. The with added ingredients text is there legally required, but it's in such small print that most people miss it entirely. And even if you spot it, the phrase with added ingredients sounds harmless. It doesn't convey that you're paying premium prices for frozen water. There's also a broader issue here about what this does to British chicken farmers. They raise birds properly, slower growing breeds, better welfare standards, no water injection. Then they have to compete in the same market with imported waterlogged chicken sold at the same price point. They can't compete. The cheap imports don't just undercut them on price, they undercut the entire market's understanding of what chicken should be. Number 7. Supermarket bacon, specifically the wet-cured bacon sold by Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's and Morrison's in their standard ranges. This is one of those things where once you know about it, you can't unknow it, and you'll see it every single time you cook bacon. UK law allows up to 10% added water in bacon without requiring a label that says with added water. Guess what percentage most supermarket bacon hits? Exactly 10%. Free profit from water. But it's not just the water, it's how they make it. Traditional dry-cured bacon takes weeks. The pork is salted and left to cure slowly, drawing out moisture and concentrating flavor. Industrial wet-cured bacon is made by injecting the pork with a brine solution containing water, salt, liquid smoke, and phosphates. Then it's vacuum tumbled for 2 hours and frozen to slice. 2 hours versus weeks. The phosphates are the clever bit. E450, E452. They make the water stick to the meat better so it doesn't all leak out immediately during cooking and expose heat deception. But it still leaks eventually. Cook this bacon and watch what happens. Your pan fills with white milky liquid. That's not fat. That's actually the water and salt solution escaping. People describe it as white gunk, and that's exactly what it looks like. The bacon shrinks, curls up, needs 50% more cooking time than dry-cured bacon. A traditional dry-cured rasher releases clean fat. This releases whatever they injected it with. One person who switched to dry-cured bacon after years of buying supermarket stuff said the difference was like going back to the 1970s when food seemed purer. That's not just nostalgia. That's the difference between bacon made properly and bacon engineered by corporations for profit margins. Here's the other thing that bothers people once they understand it. Traditional dry curing was about removing water from the pork to concentrate flavor and preserve it. That's the entire point of curing. Modern wet curing does the exact opposite. It adds water to the pork, the complete opposite. One method makes bacon better, the other dilutes it so it's cheaper to produce, and they charge you the same price for both, hoping you won't notice the difference until you get it home and cook it. Hoping you'd forget what real bacon tastes like. Number 6. Ye Old Oak hot dogs. Let's start with what mechanically separated meat actually means, because most people have no idea. This isn't meat the way you think of meat. It's a paste extracted from bones and carcasses under high pressure. The parts of the animal that can't be sold as recognizable cuts get pressure blasted off the bones into an unnatural emulsified paste. The US-style hot dogs are 60% mechanically separated chicken. The jumbo ones are 66%. The rest is water, rice flour and collagen. These aren't sausages anymore. They're engineered protein paste shaped into sausage form. The branding is genius, really. Ye Old Oak sounds traditional British heritage. The reality is a factory formulation that's about as far from traditional meat as you can get. Parents buy them thinking they're feeding their children meat, but there's no clear labeling explaining that this is mechanically separated paste from parts of the chicken that couldn't be sold as chicken. The industry has normalized this so completely that most people don't even question it anymore. Traditional sausages were meat, salt, pepper, herbs stuffed into a casing. Simple, recognizable ingredients. What you're getting now is a chemistry experiment designed to use every scrap of the animal that can't be sold on shelves, reformed into something that looks like a sausage and sold at sausage prices. Number 5. Two Sisters Food Group. You've almost certainly eaten chicken from them. They process millions of birds weekly and supply a huge portion of UK supermarket chicken across Tesco, Sainsbury's, M&S, Aldi, Lidl and others. In 2017, Undercover footage from The Guardian and ITV at their West Bromwich plant showed workers picking chicken off the floor and returning it to the line, along with allegations of date tampering and poor hygiene. A parliamentary inquiry followed, plants faced temporary suspensions, and the FSA imposed enhanced oversight, including mandatory CCTV. While the company made changes at the time, the scandal highlighted how difficult it is for consumers to know exactly which facility their supermarket chicken came from. Even today, traceability remains limited. One major supplier can feed a third of the market, and shoppers have little way of knowing the specific conditions at the time of production. And they're still operating, still processing 6 million birds per week, still supplying 1/3 of Britain's chicken. When you pick up that premium Marks & Spencer chicken breast, there's no label telling you it might have come from a supplier that was caught on camera handling floor chicken. You're buying blind, and that Marks & Spencer premium price tag doesn't guarantee premium sourcing. What's particularly frustrating about this is that consumer choice has been completely removed. You cannot avoid Two Sisters chicken by shopping at different supermarkets because they supply almost all of them. You'd need to know which specific products at which specific times came from which specific Two Sisters facility, and that information isn't available to you. The supply chain is deliberately opaque. One company supplies 1/3 of the entire UK chicken market, gets caught with serious hygiene violations across multiple facilities. And your only option as a consumer is to either stop buying supermarket chicken entirely or just hope that the enhanced oversight they're now supposedly under is actually being maintained. You're forced to trust a system that's already proven it can't be trusted. Number 4. Sainsbury's British chicken breast fillets. Here's what nobody tells you about modern supermarket chicken. There's a condition called woody breast syndrome. It's exactly what it sounds like. The texture is wrong, rubbery, almost crunchy in places. It happens because these birds are bred to grow so fast that their muscle fibers can't develop properly. They're pumped full of size in weeks instead of months, and the meat ends up tough and fibrous. Cook one of these chicken breasts and you'll notice it doesn't absorb marinades at all like a chicken from 2 decades ago. It cooks unevenly, and it weeps unnatural amounts of liquid in the pan, that excess water leaking out because the meat simply can't hold it. This isn't how chicken used to be. If you remember when chicken breasts were smaller, firmer, and actually tasted like chicken, this is why that's changed. Fast-growing breeds optimized for weight wasn't enough for them. They had to inflate them with water after that. The size increase you're seeing isn't better value, it's worse texture, sold by the kilo. What makes Sainsbury's appearance on this list particularly notable is the price point. They charge more than Asda or Tesco. They position themselves as the ethical choice, the responsible retailer. The implicit justification is that the premium you're paying reflects higher standards. But in 2023, footage obtained by animal welfare organizations from farms supplying Sainsbury's via a major processor showed overcrowded conditions with animals that appeared sick and injured, left without adequate care. Sainsbury's suspended the supplier and launched an investigation. But the footage existed, the conditions existed, the supply chain that Sainsbury's was paying into and charging customers a premium to fund was producing those conditions. The gap between the premium charged and the reality being funded is a major problem. Number 3. Tesco Woodside Farm and Rosedene Farm products. This is everything wrong with supermarket meat in one perfect example. These farms do not exist. They're completely made up. Rosedene Farm is a beautiful name, sounds quintessentially British, authentic, countryside, does not exist anywhere in the UK, purely invented for marketing. Woodside Farm is even worse because there is a real Woodside Farm. It's in Devon, run by a farmer called Richard, and Tesco stole his farm's name. They've been using it since 2016 to sell intensive factory-processed chicken that has absolutely nothing to do with Richard's operation. People kept asking him if he supplied Tesco. He doesn't. Tesco just took his name and his reputation for their marketing. Farmers in the industry have a term for this. They call it farm washing. When supermarkets slap a tractor and a Union Jack on the label and call it supporting British farmers while paying poverty prices and selling factory imports. One farmer who's been in the industry for years said they're sick of seeing their industry used as a marketing gimmick while they struggle to stay afloat. The packaging shows pictures of barns, countryside imagery, maybe a farmer in a flat cap, all the visual cues you associate with real farm packaging, deceiving any uneducated customer. The product inside will be nothing like those pictures. Mass-produced factory farm products from massive commercial operations, more than likely imported from different countries, but marketed as authentic British farm produce to justify premium prices. This practice isn't unique to Tesco, it's rampant across the entire supermarket industry. Morrisons did it until they got called out in 2017. Sainsbury's does it, Asda does it. But it all comes down to the same con. You want to support British farmers, you're willing to pay extra for British farm produce. You feel getting your food local is safer. They know that. So they create fake British farm identities, slap them on factory imports, charge you British farm prices, and pocket the difference. A Tesco employee who worked there confirmed this in the comments section of a farming video. They said everyone who worked there knew these were just fake names to replace the old Tesco value branding model. They knew it was wrong, especially when it impacts real farmers. But it continues because there's no enforcement. Which published a comprehensive report in 2024 exposing vague labeling and farm washing across all major supermarkets. Not one supermarket has made meaningful changes. Not one politician has pushed for legislation. They're hoping you'll forget about it. The government could pass mandatory clear labeling laws tomorrow. Dead simple. But they won't, because supermarkets lobby harder than any real farmer can. Every fake farm name on a package is part of a system designed to trick you to think you're supporting British farming while your money goes to factory imports and corporate profits. You thought you were helping British farmers, but you were funding their destruction. Real British farms can't compete with fake British farms because the fake ones don't have to actually farm anything. They just need a marketing team and some countryside imagery, and a good legal team. The economics become impossible. A real farmer has to cover feed costs, housing, veterinary care, land, labor, and still make enough to survive. A fake farm just needs a graphic designer, and because consumers couldn't tell the difference, the fake farms won every time. Number 2. Polish chicken. There were chicken products from a supplier called Superdrop. Since January 2020, these products have caused 480 confirmed salmonella cases in the UK alone. One person's health declined so severely they didn't survive. 1 in 5 victims ended up in hospital. Half of the people who got sick were children under 18. The chicken was sold through 8 of Britain's biggest retailers: Asda, Lidl, Iceland, Aldi, Co-op, Morrisons, Sainsbury's, even Boots. Every single one of them stocked this contaminated chicken. Over 1,000 people across Europe fell ill. But here's where this outbreak becomes truly terrifying. Scientists tested the bacteria and found something called the MCR1 gene. That gene provides resistance to colistin, which is a last resort antibiotic used when nothing else works. This chicken was spreading antibiotic-resistant bacteria that colistin can't eliminate. According to Food Standards Agency records obtained through Freedom of Information requests, they discovered this antibiotic resistance in May 2021. They didn't inform doctors treating patients. They didn't warn Polish authorities. The information sat unnoticed in a shared email account for 6 months while people kept eating this chicken and the outbreak kept spreading. Between 2021 and 2023, there were over 90 EU safety notifications specifically for Polish poultry contaminated with salmonella. Superdrop products tested positive more than a dozen times. In March 2024, the FSA finally wrote to Polish authorities expressing grave concerns after 6 new outbreaks emerged in 2003 alone. That Polish chicken is still being imported. It's still on UK shelves. And there's no clear labeling system to help you identify which frozen chicken products came from the suppliers, linked to 480 British illnesses and antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The system failed for over 3 years while 500,000 people got sick, and you're supposed to trust it's been fixed. Think about what this actually means in practice. You're standing in the frozen aisle looking at chicken products, multiple brands, multiple retailers, all with different packaging. Some will say product of Poland on them if you bring a magnifying glass, but which ones came from the specific supplier linked to the outbreak? You have no way of knowing. The Food Standards Agency knows. The retailers know. The importers know. You don't. And that information asymmetry is deliberate. If you knew which products to avoid, you'd avoid them, and somebody would lose money. So they keep you in the dark, assure you the problem's been handled, and hope you trust a system that took 6 months to even inform doctors that the outbreak involved antibiotic-resistant bacteria. This isn't incompetence. This is a system working exactly as designed, prioritizing commercial interests over public health information. Number 1. Supermarket sausages, including brands like Richmond. This one gets people angry because Richmond markets itself as the nation's favorite sausage brand. They talk about 130 years of heritage. They charge £4.41 per kilo, which is nearly 3 times what you'd pay for comparable sausages at Lidl. And they deliver 42% pork. 42%. That's the bare minimum legal requirement to call something a pork sausage in the UK. Most European countries require 70% or more. Traditional British sausages were 70 to 85% meat. Richmond has chosen to operate at the legal floor. The other 58% is water, rusk, soya protein, stabilizers, preservatives, and something called carmine, which is a pink dye made from crushed insects. They add it to make the sausages look meatier than they are. Without that dye, you'd see how pale and processed they really look, which, consumer testing confirmed what everyone suspected. Richmond costs substantially more than budget alternatives while delivering less actual meat. You're paying for brand recognition and heritage marketing while getting minimum legal standards. The label also says UK and non-UK sources for the pork, which means they're not even committing to British meat. Could be entirely imported and still legally labeled that way. Nation's favourite. Minimum standard, premium price. Think about that maths for a second. You're paying £4.41 per kilo. 42% is pork. That means the actual pork content you're paying for works out to about £10.50 per kilo when you calculate it properly. And that's not even good quality pork. That's whatever cheap cuts and trimmings they can source from UK and non-UK sources. Meanwhile, you could go to Aldi and get their specially selected sausages, which are significantly higher meat content, for a fraction of the price. Richmond has spent over a century building a reputation, and they're coasting on that reputation while delivering the legal minimum. That's not heritage, that's a heritage brand that's been gutted. Now, before we get into what you should actually be buying, we need to understand why this is happening, because it's not random and it's not accidental. This is a calculated system. British farm gate prices for beef are around £5 to £7 per kilo. Import costs from places like Poland, Brazil, or New Zealand can be as low as £3 per kilo. Supermarkets charge you £10 per kilo at retail. If they sell you British beef, their profit margin is about £4 per kilo. If they sell you imports but label them with British farm imagery and charge British prices, their profit margin jumps to £7 per kilo. Same retail price, cheaper sourcing, you pay more, they pocket the difference. An independent farmer who actually produces quality beef broke down the real costs. Feed, bedding, housing, veterinary care, slaughter, butchery, packaging, and a wage for themselves. There's a minimum cost to produce honest beef. Cheap food means someone, somewhere, is covering the real cost. And it's never the supermarket. We also need to talk about what happened to Morrison's, because it explains why even the supermarkets that used to have better standards are declining. In 2021, an American private equity firm called Fortress Investment Group bought Morrison's in a leveraged buyout. That means they loaded billions in debt onto Morrison's. To service that debt, you squeeze every possible penny out of the business. Former Morrison's suppliers have spoken publicly about changed payment terms, reduced prices, and pressure to cut costs or lose the contract. Farmers who had grown their operations specifically to supply Morrison's are now trapped. The specificity that Morrison's used to be known for has disappeared. Labels that used to say Scottish grass-fed beef from a specific farm now just say British beef. Quality commitments quietly dropped. Every one of these tactics, from farm washing to Union Jack fraud to pack size gains, is calculated to extract maximum profit while keeping you believing you're making informed choices. You're not. You can't make informed choices when the information is deliberately obscured. So what do you actually do? Because I'm not just here to make you angry. I'm here to show you the way out. The real solution, the one that actually forces supermarkets to change, is to stop giving them your money for meat. Every pound you spend at a local butcher or farm shop is a pound the supermarket didn't get, and that's the only language they understand. First, find a local independent butcher. Google butcher near me or traditional butcher and your area. Look for family butcher, local butcher, avoid chains and supermarket meat counters. When you find one, ask them a single question. Which farms supply you? A good butcher will happily tell you farm names, might even show you photos or offer information about visiting the farms. A bad butcher will be vague, say various suppliers, or refuse to tell you. If they can't or won't tell you where their meat comes from, go somewhere else. Real butchers source from a small number of local farms, usually 3 to 5, not 300. They can often name the farmers personally. The meat is cut fresh the day you buy it, not sitting in factories and distribution centers for weeks. There's no water injection, because when meat leaves the farm, there's no added water. None. What you see is what you get. The beef is hung properly, minimum 28 days, often 35, which is why steaks from farms are in a completely different league to supermarket steaks. The enzymes have time to break down the fibers and develop flavor. They offer expert advice. A skilled butcher can tell you the best way to cook each cut, recommend options based on your budget, prepare meat to your specifications. Supermarkets can't match that. And here's the important bit about cost, because everyone assumes butchers are more expensive. Yes, premium cuts like ribeye or fillet cost more, but butchers offer cheaper cuts that supermarkets don't stock. Shin, brisket, flank, scrag end, flavorful, affordable cuts that are perfect for slow cooking. You can also buy exact amounts, 2 sausages instead of 8. 300 grams of mince instead of being forced into a 500-gram pack. That often works out cheaper when you factor in reduced waste. And there's no water weight or excessive fat, so you're getting better value per gram of actual edible meat. Let me give you a real example of how the maths works. Supermarket 500-gram mince at 20% fat with 10% water injection costs £5. Seems like good value. But you're actually getting 350 grams of edible beef after you account for the fat and water. That £5 for 350 grams works out to about £14.30 per kilo of actual beef. Now compare that to a butcher selling 400 grams of 12% fat mince with 0 water injection for £6. You're getting 352 grams of edible beef for £6, which works out to roughly £17 per kilo. Yes, it's more expensive per kilo, but the difference is £2.70 per kilo for significantly better quality, no water injection, no excessive fat, and you're supporting a local business instead of a corporation that's actively deceiving you. When you frame it that way, the butcher's premium doesn't look quite so unreasonable. Second, farm shops and direct from farms. If there's a farm shop near you selling their own meat, that's complete transparency. You can often see the fields where your beef grazed. The animals are slaughtered at small local abattoirs, brought back to the farm, hung on site, and butchered on site or by a trusted local butcher. No industrial processing, no rapid chilling damage. Quality over speed. Many farms now deliver nationwide. Search farm delivery near me or farm box and your county. Look for Soil Association Organic Certification, RSPCA Assured, or Pasture for Life. These aren't just marketing badges, they're legally protected standards with real enforcement. Yes, farm shops and farm boxes are more expensive than supermarket value ranges, but you know exactly what you're getting. No water, no gas, no deception, and you're supporting British farms directly instead of funding their destruction through supermarket middlemen. The other advantage of buying direct from farms is seasonality. Supermarkets want every product available year-round, which means importing from wherever can supply at the cheapest price. Farms work with seasons. When you buy from them, you're eating beef that was ready when it was ready, not rushed to meet a supply contract. That difference matters in the final quality. There's also something to be said for the educational aspect. When you buy from a farm shop, you can ask questions. What breed are the cattle? What do they eat? How long is the beef hung? How are the animals raised? Try asking those questions at Tesco. The staff don't know because the supply chain is so long and complex that nobody actually knows the answers except maybe someone in a procurement office you'll never meet. Farm shops reconnect you with where your food actually comes from, and that knowledge changes how you think about what you're eating. Third, farmers markets when you can find real ones. There used to be strict rules. Only producers could sell, organizers visited farms to verify. Nothing bought in to resell. Then supermarkets started creating fake farmers market aisles with awnings to look like stalls. Destroyed the whole concept. If you find a genuine farmers market, usually on weekends, you're buying from producers selling their own products. You can talk to the actual farmer, ask which farm, and real farmers can tell you everything. Look for mud on boots, farm clothing, personal stories, real farmers versus resellers pretending. The challenge with farmers markets now is distinguishing between genuine producer-only markets and what are essentially outdoor retail markets where anyone can rent a stall. A real farmers market will have organization behind it, rules about who can sell, verification processes. The organizers will visit farms. They'll check that the person selling beef actually raises cattle. If you're unsure, ask the market organizers about their vetting process. If they don't have one, it's not a real farmers market. It's just an outdoor market where some of the vendors might be farmers and others might be resellers buying wholesale and marking it up. But if you absolutely have to use supermarkets, if you're in a rural area with no butcher access, or you need emergency top-ups between farm shop trips, here's the least worst options. First, for chicken, Co-op. They're the statistical winner. 0 chickens testing above the contamination threshold for 3 years straight from 2024, not a single highly contaminated bird. That's not luck. That's rigorous supplier selection and quality control that actually works. Only major supermarket with this record. Second, Marks & Spencer Select Farms range. Not their standard stuff. Specifically Select Farms. These products have named farms, specified breeds, and are fully traceable back to specific farms and individual animals. You can literally trace which farm and which animal your meat came from. They use slower-growing chicken breeds, not the fast-growing Ross 308 broilers that cause woody breast. The chicken has flavor and doesn't shrink to half its size in the pan. Their dry-aged beef has actually been aged. The enzymes did their work. Outdoor bred pork as standard, not as a premium exception. Yes, it's expensive, often 50 to 100% more than standard supermarket meat, but the premium is justified with actual higher quality and proof. Third, Waitrose Dutchy Organic and Free-Range ranges. The Dutchy Organic British Beef Mince is 12% fat, 100% organic British beef with no water, no fillers, no additives. Organic certification means full legal protection. Annual inspections. Animals truly free-range, with space to graze. No routine antibiotics, no growth hormones. The free-range whole chicken uses slower-growing breeds, has no water injection, and doesn't weep liquid when you cook it. You can actually fry it instead of boiling it in leaked water. Most expensive supermarket option, but highest standards with legal backing. Fourth, Aldi's Specially Selected range. Not their basics, specifically specially selected. The Aberdeen Angus Steak Mince is 5% fat, 100% British, actual Aberdeen Angus, not crossbred label fraud. Aldi's fresh chicken isn't water injected like Iceland or Asda. The plumping practices that plague other retailers aren't present. They operate on fixed-price, long-term contracts with suppliers, which gives farmers stability to invest instead of constant renegotiation pressure. Low prices come from efficient operations, not cutting corners on the actual product. Premium quality without premium supermarket prices. Don't dismiss it because the tin says Aldi. Fifth, Simon Howie dry-cured bacon, available at Tesco Scotland and selected Tesco England stores. No added water, completely dry-cured by hand, traditional weeks-long cure instead of 2-hour injection. When you cook it, fat comes out, not white gunk. The pan stays clean. It doesn't shrink dramatically. People who've switched say it's like going back to the 70s when food was made properly. Worth seeking out even if you have to special order. One more thing about certifications, because this comes up a lot and there's genuine confusion about what different labels actually mean. Red Tractor is the baseline. It covers basic UK standards for food safety, hygiene, and traceability. It prohibits growth hormones and chlorine-washed meat. 95% of UK pork carries Red Tractor certification. But here's the critical weakness. Red Tractor inspections are announced. Farms know the auditors are coming. They can prepare, clean up, temporarily improve conditions for the audit, then revert back afterward. The standard of farm meets for 1 hour during an inspection is not necessarily the standard maintained the rest of the year. RSPCA Assured is better. It requires more space than legal minimums, proper bedding, better living conditions. All RSPCA-assured farms must also be Red Tractor certified, so you're getting 2 layers of assurance. It doesn't require outdoor rearing, which some people assume, but indoor farming can still meet high welfare standards if done properly. Soil Association Organic is the gold standard. It's the only certification with full legal protection and enforcement. Annual inspections that aren't announced, animals must be truly free-range with space to graze and forage. No routine antibiotics, no growth hormones, higher standards for bedding and feed, significantly more space per animal compared to conventional farming. When you see that green organic leaf logo or the Soil Association symbol, you're buying meat from farms that prioritize animal welfare and food safety above profit margins. It costs more because it costs more to produce. There's no getting around that. But you're paying for genuine standards with legal backing, not marketing promises. One more thing about the barriers people face. I know not everyone has a butcher within 5 miles. I know farm shops can be inconvenient. I know it requires more planning than popping into Tesco. But here's the reality. Hundreds of people have already figured this out and made it work. Car share with neighbors to farm shops, do monthly bulk trips, mix it up, farm shop for meat, supermarket for everything else. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is opting out of a system designed to deceive you while destroying British farming. How much is it worth to you to know what you're actually eating? And I'll be honest with you, when I started researching this, I didn't expect to find the scale of deception that I found. Fake farm names seemed almost too blatant to be real. Water injection sounded like conspiracy theory until I saw the industry testimony. The idea that one supplier could provide 1/3 of the UK's chicken while having serious documented hygiene issues seemed impossible in a regulated market. But all of it's real, all of it's documented, and all of it's still happening right now while you're watching this. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed to maximize corporate profit while you're kept just informed enough to feel good about your choices, but not informed enough to make actually good choices. And that's why this video matters, because the only way this changes is if enough people know about it, get angry about it, and vote with their wallets. Supermarkets track sales data obsessively. When their meat sales drop and local butcher sales rise, they notice. When videos like this go viral and public sentiment shifts, they panic. Make them panic. So here's what I need you to do right now. If this video made you angry, if it changed how you'll shop, hit that hype button one more time if you haven't already. Share this with people who need to see it, because supermarkets track social media sentiment and they track sales data. When local butcher sales rise and their meat sales drop, they notice. When videos like this go viral, they panic. Make them panic. Leave a comment telling me which food or product category we should investigate next, because I'm going to keep doing these and your suggestions directly shape what we cover. Subscribe if you haven't, because there's a lot more of this coming. Until next time, stay skeptical, demand transparency, and protect your plate.